The path of the liberated willow. In the busy modern world, where family, professional, and personal responsibilities bind us to patterns that no longer serve us, we often forget the most essential truth. Freedom is not found outside of ourselves. It resides within. This Zen story tells the journey of Kenji, a 52-year-old master craftsman who, after decades of building the life he thought he was supposed to live, discovers that the heaviest chains are the ones he forged himself. Through unexpected encounters and subtle teachings, he learns that liberating oneself from expectations, letting go of control, and finding inner peace do not require abandoning the life we know, but rather transforming our relationship with it. If you've ever wondered how to let go of the past, how to rediscover your true purpose after 45, or how to live authentically when everyone expects something from you, this story will offer deep reflections that resonate with your own life experience. Join us on this journey of self-discovery and personal transformation that reminds us, it's never too late to become who we truly are. Chapter 1: The Weight of Expectations. Kenji looked at his calloused hands under the dim light of his workshop. 52 years of carving wood, fulfilling orders, and meeting others' expectations. His reputation as a master carpenter was flawless throughout the province. Yet that morning, as he awoke, he felt something he hadn't in decades: the desire not to get up. A man in your position can't afford such luxuries, he told himself, echoing the words his father had instilled in him. That was how he had built his life, upon pillars of duty, responsibility, and the fear of disappointment. His wife Yumi prepared breakfast as she did every morning. Their grown children lived their own lives in the city. The workshop was full of orders. Everything seemed perfect from the outside, but inside, Kenji felt an existential emptiness spreading like a crack through old wood. That afternoon, while working on a cherrywood table for an important client, his tool slipped. A deep cut on his left hand forced him to stop. As Yumi wrapped the wound, he felt something strange, a secret relief at being unable to continue working. "Maybe you need to rest," she suggested softly, noticing something new in his eyes. Exhaustion not of the body, but of the soul. Kenji nodded in silence, not daring to admit that the true weight was not in his hands, but in his heart. It was time to begin the journey toward inner freedom, though he did not yet know it. Chapter 2: The Meeting with the Wandering Monk. With his hand bandaged and a week of forced rest, Kenji decided to walk along the forest trails he hadn't visited since his youth. The ancient trees reminded him of a time when carving wood had been passion, not obligation. Under a weeping willow by a stream, he found an old monk sitting in meditation. His presence was as natural as the stones and water. Kenji tried to pass quietly, but the monk spoke without opening his eyes. "The willow does not fight the wind. That's why it never breaks." Kenji stopped, intrigued. "Are you speaking to me, master?" The monk opened his eyes and smiled. "I speak to whoever needs to listen. Your hand will heal. But what about the invisible wounds?" Startled by the monk's insight, Kenji sat beside him. For hours they shared tea in silence. The monk asked nothing, yet Kenji began to speak. Of his achievements, his sacrifices, his life built upon the expectations of others. "You've been like rigid bamboo," the monk observed. "Strong in appearance, but rigid bamboo breaks in the storm. Freeing yourself from emotional bonds doesn't mean abandoning your responsibilities. It means changing the reason you fulfill them." Before leaving, the monk handed him a small seed. "Plant it and care for it. When it blooms, you'll understand what you cannot yet see." Kenji kept the seed, unaware that he had begun his true process of inner healing. Chapter 3: The Invisible Chains. Back home, Kenji planted the seed in a clay pot he had made years ago. Each morning, he watered it, watching the soil for signs of life. The waiting taught him something he had forgotten: patience without expectation. His hand healed slowly, but he felt no rush to return to work. This worried his clients, who sent messages asking about their orders. Each message was a reminder of the chains of duty he had carried for decades. One night, his eldest son Hiroshi visited. Seeing his father unusually contemplative, he asked, "Are you all right, father? I've never seen you so detached from your work." Kenji looked at his son and saw a reflection of himself. Ambitious, responsible, trapped in the wheel of success. "Hiroshi, why did you choose your profession? To be successful, to do what's right." His son replied automatically. "And are you happy?" The question hung in the air. Hiroshi didn't know how to answer. In that silence, both men recognized an uncomfortable truth. They had confused success with happiness, duty with purpose. "For years, I've carved what others wanted," Kenji confessed. "I forgot to ask myself what I wanted to carve." Letting go of control over how others see us is the first step toward true freedom. That night, father and son shared a more honest conversation than they'd had in years. The awakening of consciousness had begun, not just in Kenji, but in those around him. Chapter 4: The First Break. One morning, a tiny green sprout emerged from the soil. Kenji watched in wonder at this small manifestation of life he had waited for so patiently. The seed hadn't struggled, it had simply followed its nature. Inspired, Kenji returned to his workshop, not to fulfill orders, but for pure joy. For the first time in decades, he carved freely. An abstract figure representing nothing but the movement of water, the freedom of wind. His hands moved with a lightness he had long forgotten. Yumi entered and observed the piece. "It's beautiful. Who is it for?" "For no one. It's just expression." She smiled with understanding. For years, she had watched her husband wither under the weight of expectations. Now she saw the first signs of his rebirth. "I've waited a long time to see this," she said softly. Kenji realized that his wife had also carried her own burden, the weight of supporting a man who had lost himself. Finding inner peace wasn't just an individual act. It liberated those we love as well. He did something radical. He contacted his most important clients and respectfully declined their commissions. The initial fear soon gave way to a sense of lightness. Each no was a yes to himself. "You're letting go of the past," Yumi observed, "and creating space for something new." Kenji nodded, feeling the invisible chains begin to loosen. Emotional freedom was a process, not a destination, and he had only taken the first steps. Chapter 5: The Mirror of the Lake. The wandering monk had once mentioned a lake in the mountains, a place where the water shows you who you truly are. With the plant growing strong by his window, Kenji decided to make the journey. The 3-day walk into the mountains became a meditation in itself. Without the constant noise of obligation, Kenji began to hear his inner voice, the one he had silenced for years to listen to others. At the lake, he found the monk sitting by the shore. "I knew you'd come," the monk said calmly. "Look at the water. What do you see?" Kenji gazed at his reflection. He saw a middle-aged man with gray at his temples, wrinkles around his eyes, but also something deeper: vulnerability, humanity, authenticity. For years, he had maintained a mask of perfection, a flawless master craftsman. Now he saw the human behind the facade. "I see someone who has lived for others," he admitted. "And is that wrong?" asked the monk. Kenji thought, "It's not wrong to serve others. What's wrong is losing yourself in that service." The monk nodded. "Self-knowledge is the master key. You can't free yourself from what you don't recognize binds you. You've identified your chains, expectations, fear of judgment, the need for external validation. Now comes the hardest part. "What's that?" asked Kenji. "Forgiving yourself for having lived that way. Self-acceptance includes embracing our past choices without resentment." The monk threw a pebble into the lake. Ripples spread and vanished. Just as water doesn't cling to its ripples, you mustn't cling to who you were. Every moment is a chance to begin again. Chapter 6. The Inner Storm. Back home, Kenji faced the inevitable resistance of change. Some clients felt abandoned. Neighbors whispered about his midlife crisis. And even his youngest son expressed concern about his strange behavior. Personal transformation is rarely a smooth road. One night, Kenji awoke drenched in sweat, gripped by fear. What if he was being selfish? What if he disappointed everyone? What if this search for freedom was just an illusion? The plant by the window now had strong leaves. Kenji looked at it in the moonlight, recalling the monk's words about the willow. Flexible, not rigid. The storm within him was part of the process. Yumi found him awake. "Doubts?" she asked. "Constantly," he admitted. "Maybe change is only for the young. At our age, maybe we should just accept what we have." She took his hand. "At our age, we finally have the wisdom to know what truly matters. The young change because they're finding themselves. We change because we've finally found ourselves." Her words were a balm. Overcoming fear of change after 45, Kenji realized, wasn't cowardice. It was courage. It meant dismantling decades of conditioning, facing the judgment of those who expected him to remain the same, and choosing authenticity over comfort. The inner storm began to calm when Kenji accepted that he didn't need all the answers. Emotional freedom wasn't certainty, it was the peace of living with the questions. Chapter 7. The Blooming. 3 months after planting the seed, the plant bloomed. A delicate white flower opened on a spring morning, filling the workshop with its soft fragrance. Kenji looked at it with tears in his eyes, finally understanding the monk's gift. The flower hadn't rushed. It hadn't fought to bloom faster or differently. It simply followed its nature, responding to light, water, and time. It had fully existed in every stage: seed, sprout, stem, bud, and now blossom. That was the teaching. To live authentically is to honor every stage of our life without resistance. Kenji had spent years resisting his present, longing for the past or fearing the future. Now he understood that liberation didn't mean changing his external life, but transforming his relationship with it. He began carving again, but differently. He accepted only the projects that resonated with his spirit. He said no without guilt and yes with genuine joy. Some days he carved nothing at all, just sat in the forest or talked with Yumi for hours. His reputation changed. He was no longer the master carpenter who never disappointed. He became the craftsman who created from the soul. Strangely, this attracted a new kind of client. People who valued authenticity over perfection, expression over flawless technique. Hiroshi visited again and noticed the change. "Father, you seem free," he said, almost envious. Kenji smiled. "I am. But personal freedom isn't a place you arrive at, son. It's a daily practice of choosing your truth over others' expectations. It's never too late to begin." Chapter 8. The Willow in the Storm. A year later, a real storm struck the region. Violent winds tore up rigid trees and shattered inflexible structures. From his window, Kenji watched the great willow by the stream bend dramatically under the wind, its branches nearly touching the ground, but it did not break. When the storm passed, the willow straightened slowly, unharmed. The lesson was clear and profound. The monk appeared again, as if summoned by the moment. "Do you understand now?" he asked. Kenji nodded. Liberating oneself doesn't mean becoming indifferent or abandoning responsibilities. It means cultivating inner flexibility so that life's storms, expectations, judgments can pass through you without breaking you. Exactly, said the monk. You've learned that true strength is adaptability, not rigidity. You've discovered that your life purpose isn't something you find once and follow blindly. It's something you rediscover constantly by listening inwardly. Kenji looked at the plant, now strong and healthy. The seed was a metaphor. Everything is a metaphor. The monk smiled. Your injured hand, the storm, the willow. Life is always teaching if you're willing to learn. The question was never how to free yourself from your life, but how to live your life free. In the months that followed, Kenji quietly shared what he'd learned. He didn't preach, he simply lived differently. Some understood, others didn't, and that was okay. Peace of mind came from accepting that he couldn't control how others perceived his path. He founded a small school where he taught carpentry not as a technique, but as meditation. To his students, many also in the second half of their lives, he taught, carve with presence, not with haste. Let the wood show you its nature. Don't force it to become what you want. Hiroshi eventually left his corporate job to explore his own passion. Yumi began painting, a dream she had postponed for decades. Kenji's personal growth had rippled outward, touching everyone around him. One afternoon, while carving a new piece under the willow by the stream, Kenji understood the final truth. He had never been trapped by external circumstances. His chains had always been his own beliefs about who he had to be, how he had to live, what he had to achieve. Liberation began the day he gave himself permission to simply be, without justification or explanation. He hadn't reached a final destination. He had discovered that freedom was the journey itself. The willow swayed gently in the breeze, and Kenji, now like the willow, moved with life instead of against it. This was his silent revolution, finding freedom not by changing the outer world, but by transforming the inner one. And in that transformation, he discovered he had been whole all along. He had only needed to remember the end. Liberation doesn't require abandoning your life. It asks that you awaken within it.